Alright guys, getting into the action here on the second table. Things got interesting pretty quickly over here. There was a middle position raised to $20. There was a call in the cutoff, and we looked down at ace deuce of clubs on the button. Could go either way here. I think we could put this into our 3-bet squeeze range. Suited wheel aces usually play pretty well in that, taking that route, but I decided to flat here. We have the button. We get to play all streets in position, which is always nice. There's one call out of the blind, so we go 4 ways to another pretty favorable flop here. We see a flop of 5 deuce deuce rainbow. The favorable gear is doing its job so far apparently. So action checks the initial raiser, who puts out a bet of $65. Cutoff folds. I'm gonna flat call here. There's not too many draws available again. Super dry board, so I flat call, and the player in the big blind puts in a raise. Makes it $160, and the initial raiser calls. So this is shaping up pretty nicely. I wouldn't expect him to always raise pocket 5s here. Don't expect him to have 5 deuce too often, and I suspect the initial raiser might slow play sometimes as well. So I feel like we have the effective nuts here. Don't know if there's too much reason to raise, as previously mentioned. I just flat call here again, see what happens. We see a 3 of clubs on the turn, so we add ourselves a straight flush draw to our trips holding. The big blind does not stop betting. This time he bets, I believe, $240. Again, the initial raiser calls. So things are happening here. The pot is building. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and go with it and just jam it here. Reason for that is, even though we have the flush draw, we're not afraid of any cards here. I think could be some cards that could potentially kill the action. So I don't know if we necessarily want to see a club here. It seems like the big blind could have some other deuces in his range where he is completing the action pre-flop versus 3 other players. King deuce suited, queen deuce suited, 7 deuce suited, who knows. Plenty of deuces left. It seems like it's going to be tough for him to fold any of those cards. The player in the middle, I don't think is too deep. I don't think we're too deep with either of these players, really. So I'm just going to go ahead and jam it in there and hope that they are too invested to fold, and hope that we're still good here, of course. So that's what I do, stick it in there. The player in the big blind doesn't think for too long before calling it. The player in the middle, the initial raiser, feels like she's not loving the situation, does not snap call, but gives it a sigh and then tosses in a chip to signify that call. So we're off to see a river 3 ways in a 3-way all-in situation. River is an offsuit 6. I go ahead and show, and it turns out the big blind has ace deuce of diamonds, so same hand as us, and the initial raiser in middle position mucks her hand. So unfortunately we don't get to scoop this one, but we do win a small side pot, and we definitely profit some. Probably an unlucky situation there from with the middle position player having a big overpair, if I had to guess. So some run good there in that hand. Can't complain, can't get too greedy about not scooping it. Last interesting hand, we open up ace queen offsuit to $20 from early middle position. There is a call before a late position player goes ahead and makes it $80. Interesting spot here with ace queen. I really don't like flatting with this hand in particular, especially with it being offsuit and especially being out of position. Add to that we were the initial raiser from early position, I feel like we should be able to represent a pretty strong range, and we have some blockers to good hands in our hand. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in the 4-bet here. I make it $245, size up a little bit than usual considering we're out of position. The player in the middle folds, and the player in late position thinks for a while before making the call. So decent sized pot brewing here. We're off to see a flop heads up, which comes ace jack high with 2 clubs. Not a terrible flop, maybe not the best flop ever, but not a terrible one. I'm not sure if this is going to be an all-in situation or a hand that we want to just go with. There's a couple of options on the table here. We can charge some various holdings, even an underpair. Seems like we don't want to give any free cards to. Reasons for checking might be that we can't really get value from a wide range of hands here either. So I decided on a check, especially with a club in my hand, even though we're not gonna have to worry about flush draws too often in a 4-bet pot. But I decided to check, and my opponent checks back. The turn is the 10 of clubs. So interesting, because now we're losing to maybe like a king queen suited, ace 10, pocket 10s, losing to some additional hands, but we still have a flush draw to go along with our good top pair. I decided to check it, and action checks through one more time. River is the 7 of clubs, so now we end up with a queen high flush here. Once again, I decided to maybe set the trap a little bit, maybe under-repping my hands. Could probably get some value here from some weaker clubs, but I decided to check, and maybe he'll turn some hands into a bluff. Maybe he will overvalue some hands himself. After I check it, he puts out a bet of somewhere around $110. Very straightforward call here. We go ahead and snap call that, and he shows us pocket 8s with the 8 of clubs. So we win that one. Always good to win 4-bet pots. That's gonna help the win rate a decent amount. things going well so far. Running good here at Maryland Live. Lots of tables. On to the next table. Pretty fun hand where there was a late position open to $20. I believe the button called and I called with 6-5 of hearts in the big blind. We flop ourselves a gutter ball plus a backdoor flush draw, 10-3 deuce. Check to the initial raiser, puts out a bet, $40. The player in between folds, and I think I don't want to just black call here out of position. I think I want to try and represent a set, represent not much else. I don't know if it's the best board to necessarily try and represent something, because I'm probably not going to be calling pre-flop with 10-3 and 10-2 and 3-2. I will have all the sets here, but even then I might still 3-bet with pocket 10s from the big blind. Maybe not always, definitely can have all the sets, but I don't think I can have any of the 2-pair combinations. So I'm not exactly sure that this is the best board to check raise, but I'm going to do it anyway because whatever, it's a meetup game. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the check raise up to $125. My opponent thinks for a little bit and he makes the call. So we're off to a turn card, which adds the backdoor flush draw possibilities to our hand. Still going to keep firing here. Definitely not going to give up now that we've picked up all this extra equity with the backdoor flush draw. This time I bet $250. My opponent, once again, is not ready to give up. He makes the call. So we're going to see what happens here on the river. Things are developing, a big pot brewing here. We get there both ways though on the river. It's the 4 of hearts. So we make the nut straight and we make a flush. That always makes things easy. He's got maybe about, I want to say $600, $500 to $600 left in his stack. Maybe 500, 5 something. With the pot at the current size and as the board lies, pretty straightforward jam here, I think. Hope that he puts us on a busted spade draw. So I go ahead and jam all in. My opponent goes well into the tank, thinking for quite some time here, thinking it over for a long time. He asks if it's okay to show his hands to get a read off of me, and he shows us pocket kings. He does have the king of spades, which is kind of a disappointment because we would prefer to him to have the king of hearts and not the king of spades, because having the king of spades eliminates a bunch of the potential busted flush draws that we could have in this spot, and he doesn't have any hearts in his hand, which does not eliminate any potential flushes that we could have backdoored into. So after thinking about it for a while, he makes a very good fold. He plays it perfectly. He puts money into the pot when he has the best hand and $0 into the pot when we get there and he does not have the best hand. I don't show it to him. I give him a little bit of ribbing later on when I tell him that I just bluffed him. Oh man, so I just bluffed this guy so good. It's gonna be great. Wait till you guys hear this. I tell him he's gonna see it on the vlog, and I'm sure he's watching it right now. So well played, good sir. All right, moving on to the next table. Let's go. Things are happening. I've moved to a new table and things are definitely happening that are worth reporting. So interesting hand here develops. I believe we're on the 5th or 6th or 80th table. Full disclosure, I've had a couple beers and someone bought me a shot of Fireball. So bear with me here. But new table here, and this hand starts innocently enough. There is a straddle on for $10 and a raise in early position at $25. We look down at 2 black 5s and go ahead and make a standard flat call. Player on my left calls, and I believe there's one more caller behind. So about $100 in the pot, and we are 4 ways to a flop. Flop comes ace 10-5 all hearts, and that gives us bottom set. Pretty favorable flop for these 2 5s. There are 3 hearts out there that we can't just you know, disregard now, can we? So when the initial raiser bets $65, I think flat call might be in order. We're pretty deep here, somewhere around $15 or $16 or $1,800 effective going into this hand. So don't want to just shovel a bunch of money in here with bottom set on a monotone board. The player on my left disagrees. He has other intentions and raises. He makes it $210 to go. Folds back over to us. A little bit of a decision, but I think the initial thoughts there on the flop, being a monotone board and bottom set, we're still pretty deep. I think those thoughts are still going to apply here. So I'm just going to go ahead and flat call here and see what develops. The turn comes an offsuit king. So usually doesn't change too much unless he somehow has a queen jack. I'm going to check it over to the aggressor and see what happens here, and he continues his aggression. He bets $425 this time. So we have a massive pot brewing if we decide to proceed, and we are definitely going to proceed here. And again, it's another question of whether to raise or to flat call again and evaluate the river. My thinking at the time is that hands that he might be betting for value that we beat includes ace-10. Now that the king is available on the board, granted it might be a little bit unlikely that I have ace-king here, or that ace-10 would not still be good on this board versus another 2-pair at least, but I think he might shut down with that hand on the river. It's going to be a very tough decision if we don't fill up to a full house. If we don't improve to a full house on the river, it's going to be a very tough decision. And if he puts us to the test for that type of decision. So I think I'm going to flat call here. I'm going to see what happens on the river and see what he does. If he checks back, I expect to be good all the time on a brick river. If he jams, we're going to have a decision, and that's probably going to be the only two decisions here. So I flat call, and we're off to a river card, which is another 10. So we do improve to a full house. We are now losing to ace-10, however. So I check it over to him, continue to play and flow. I don't think there's any point in going ahead and just ripping it all in there. So check it over to him, and instead he decides to jam all in. So we have him covered. He has about $1,300 here. Right away I say I don't think I'm going to fold here.
All in, seat number 8.
Well, I don't think I'm folding. We have a full house. Now we beat all of the flushes, of course. He could still be value betting a very strong flush. Could put us on a worse flush perhaps. I mean, let's be honest, it's a full house in a meetup game, in a straddle pot. I don't think about it for too long. I'm just gonna go ahead and either give him these chips, or we're gonna win a big pot here. So I don't know if there's too much analysis that needs to go along with it. So I toss in the chips. Before saying so, I say I have a full house, so I'm not gonna fold. I have a full house.
Calls.
Toss it in, and he says wow. He gives it the disappointed wow, which probably sounds like a good sign to us. I go ahead and show after he gives us that verbal acknowledgement, and it turns out he has King of Hearts, offsuit jack. So turning it into the full-blown bluff on the river, follows through with it on the river. He's got the nut blocker on the flop, and it's going to be a really tough decision if we don't make a full house there on the river. Like I said, if it comes in offsuit deuce on the river and he still fires away, I think there's a pretty decent chance that I'm going to fold there on the river. I don't know if that's a good fold. Maybe it's too strong of a hand to fold, but we're going to have a lot of flushes there. Maybe pocket tens to call down with. And maybe we can let bottom set go. I'm not too sure, maybe that's too weak, but I would definitely fold some percentage of the time. And perhaps he gets a little bit unlucky. He definitely has all the heart in the world. Definitely puts us in a tough spot if we don't make a full house on the river. But as it is, we win a big pot here. Definitely the pot of the night so far.